Hello, everyone. This is Dr. J, host of the Sexuality Space. Welcome to our live event. My silent co host, Misha Elliott, will be preparing the tweets for today. As everyone is gathering into this live space, I wanted to share some information for those listening to the replay. If you are new to the Sexuality Space, we are live every Wednesday, noon Eastern Time on Twitter. I've worked really hard to create a sex positive community where we talk about all sorts of sex topics, meet CEOs of sex companies, sex educators, researchers, and writers. And I work to integrate sexuality into everyday life by being seen in the daylight doing my work. Welcome to you all. I see that I have some of the regulars here today. Hello. We'll be having a conversation with our guests before we take speaking requests today. And please note that the space is equipped with its own chat feature that is in the bottom right-hand corner. So you can ask questions there as the space goes along. Um, Last week, we spoke with Derek Newton of Be Sympathetic about his questionnaire that brings couples together in what they desire. And today, we're speaking with the founder of the Reimagine Sexuality Conference, Rocio Pelayo. So, welcome everyone. Hi, Rocio. Did you get in okay?
I did. I did. Thank you, Dr. J. I'm here, ready to go.
Oh, this is so exciting. I have one technical thing that I see that I need to work with for whatever reason. Misha is having a difficult time getting into her co-host space. And I see that it says she's
I'm here.
accepted. Guess what? I have no picture of you in the space at all. We already have squirrely things happening. That's too wild.
Do you see what I added to the nest?
Yes. Okay, but you're
Okay.
you're not in here, so that's pretty funny. Well, I love it. Well, Rocio, this is how things go. Sometimes you get little quirky doodads, and I keep getting a message that says Misha has accepted. She's now a co-host, and I'm like, well, if she is, why don't I see her?
Where is she?
Where is she? She's
Try
hiding.
minimizing and re maximizing it and see if I come in.
Well,
Yeah, because we can see her. Well, I can see her. She's there
what?
for
How
sure.
many people do you see in the space? How many avatars?
What do I see? I see like 12.
Really? I see five. This is so exciting. But I tell you, I am thrilled to have you with us today. And I was thinking how cool it was that we met in a sex tech conversation where you got to hear all about me. And I didn't get to ask you any questions about you and how you got into what you're doing. So I'm really excited to talk about that today. So I'm just going to start with this nice, broad question of tell us who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dr. J, thank you so much first for the invitation to be here. I knew that, funny enough, actually, we were connected earlier this year during South by Southwest here in Austin, Texas, but we were both so busy. So we just left it in our DMs as we will connect soon. And then I heard you speak at a Sex Tech Connect event, and I thought, oh no, 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 no. This woman, I've got to talk to her. I've got to connect with her. So, thank you for having me in this space. I'm really excited about what I'm doing and what it's about. So let me go into who I am. My name is Rocio Pelayo, and I am actually a technology strategist. I've been in technology for over 25 years. So these little quirks that you got, that you're like about tech, I get it completely. I've had these little quirks for like $80 million projects. So I get that. Um, I have been helping huge corporations most of my life through technology, making them more efficient, making them more productive, helping their workforce, moving workforce, through organizational change management and doing all of this work around tech. And about a decade ago, a little over a decade ago, I was working. I've always worked with the big companies, the big consulting firms that we all know that do some of this big work. That's where I grew up. But about a decade ago, I left those firms and I created my own consulting company. So through my own consulting company, I had my own clients, had my own teams. But again, I was in that corporate space, working with banks, working with big manufacturing companies, working with all that. And then came boredom. I got bored. I had great teams. Things were great. Doing everything was fine, but it just wasn't fulfilling anymore. And I started to mentor. I decided, I'm just going to go see what's happening in innovation spaces. And I'm just going to mentor. So I was mentoring at accelerators and incubators. And all of a sudden, I hear, that um, all these things are happening in sex and in the sex realm, in sexuality and stuff like that. And I thought, what's happening? What is this? Why are we have so much innovation here? And so I started to look into that. And then I realized what these innovators were doing. It was no longer about just making a sex toy or about porn or, not, there's nothing wrong with any of those spaces, but they were going above and beyond now. Like we were looking at sex education, sexual wellness, all these things. And I thought, we need to talk about this. Like, we just need to talk more about this. And then in 2019, I got picked to talk about it at South by Southwest as a person that has a tech background. And I was going to be talking about what was happening in that industry. So that's how I came into the sex tech space. But when I was in that space, I also realized another thing. I am originally from Mexico. I am Latin, and my roots are from Mexico, all Latin America. I just had my education in the US, but my background is very different. And then I looked back and I thought, nobody is talking about this in Latin America. We're not talking about what innovations are happening or how innovations are actually moving us forward in our sexual wellness, because as you know very well, Dr. J, sexuality is not just about the physical well-being, but it's also a mental well-being, right? So I decided I've got to focus in that space. Well, I didn't decide. Actually, the industry decided for me when I asked, hey, who's representing in Spanish? How are we having these conversations in Spanish? And they all looked at me and said, well, welcome to the show.
I guess you are.
You are the person. So, it was like, okay. During the pandemic, during COVID, I kind of started looking at what was happening again in the market. So we ended up having more people come into the innovation space. And I decided to start a podcast in Spanish. So my podcast is called Hablemos Sex Tech. Let's talk sex tech. And I had so much interest. However, I didn't have a lot of innovators to talk to because nobody was innovating for Spanish speakers, right? For our own culture.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that. So we had a lot of sex therapists and doctors and clinics and people talking about what we needed and what we still need. And we became really popular, 26 countries. We're 26 countries where we're the most popular. We're listened to a lot. And then I got invited to speak at big tech conferences. And there's a huge need for it, like huge need to talk about not just sex toys or not just education around porn, but to actually talk about what does sexual health mean? Like, what does it mean? It's not, go ahead.
I was going to say, I love how, your world, your path, the way you got here really speaks to, the steps along the way and where you stop and go, I need this. This is where I need to go, and the interest and the passion in that. But, a lot of times people stop and ask me, what exactly is sex tech? So based on what we're going to do at the conference, why don't you give us that definition, how you're putting it together, and then we'll talk about the pillars of it after that.
Okay, absolutely. So that, awareness of knowing that, okay, we need to define this better. I looked at what sex tech was doing, and then I thought, okay, so sex tech really is all the innovations that are there to enhance our sexual well-being, both physical and mental that covers relationships, education, pleasure, health, and safety. So looking at all that, that is what the sex tech industry is made of, because we will see, and in my conference, I've highlighted several innovators of all those different spaces, from health to safety to education, and of course to pleasure, right? Because we just think about pleasure sometimes, but if we don't have those other pieces, if we don't have sexual education, sexual safety, sexual health, healthy relationships, we are not optimizing our sexual pleasure. And we are not really understanding fully our sexual pleasure. And then, so all of this comes together. So I decided, we need to talk about the business of the sex tech industry, because it's an industry that is projected to grow, and we get different numbers. Pre-pandemic, we were seeing it at a $30 billion industry, where in 5 years it was going to be, something like $120 billion in within 5 years. During the pandemic, it actually pushed it faster. COVID and people being at home, we saw more innovators in the space. We saw an increase in purchases. We saw an increase in services being needed and provided. So that pushed us a little bit faster. Now we're seeing that the industry within the next couple of years could be, that $120 billion industry. So we said, okay, well, I was like, I've always been a business person. I'm business minded. I've been an entrepreneur since I was young. My family's an entrepreneur type of family. We were kind of that survivor family. We do what we need to do to survive. Being from Mexico, you kind of just learn that that's just life. And so I was doing entrepreneurship since I was like 10 years old, trying to come up with ideas of selling stuff, so my mind's always been on the business side. I grew up going to business school. I attended, business school, got an MBA, did a Yale executive management program. My focus is business and how the world of business works. So that's what I realized, that we really were not having the conversations, but this industry struggles with marketing, struggles with funding, with investments. And so I decided, let's shine a light on this. I want to talk to as many innovators, and not just innovators that are just coming up with products and services, but the people behind the scenes, the attorneys, the supply chain managers, the marketing people, the funding people, the experts, like yourself, the therapists that go in and talk to these companies to help them innovate, scientists as well that are involved with all this. Like, we need to shine a light as to how normal of a business this is, and how normal the people behind this. They're all, professionals, well-intended. The word sex tech was coined in 2009 by Cindy Gallup. And that's when we really saw the revolution of sex positive innovations. So to me, when I hear or say the word sex tech, it is a positive movement of the sex industry, because sometimes when we say, oh, the sex industry, we have like this negative connotation, this negative view of it. It is about all the positive innovations that are helping us to move forward in our understanding of ourselves, our sexuality, and how we move around that world. So I hope that has given a little bit of a background as to how I married, who I am, what my background is, and why Reimagine Sexuality is about the business of humanity.
I absolutely love that. And you have two things that I wanted to think about with what you just said. I don't know. I don't know where this idea just came into my mind, but I guess the first question that I want to ask you is, did you go to sex tech school?
I actually did. I did become part of sex tech school with Brianna Cole. I was already launching Let's Talk Sex Tech and Hablemos Sex Tech. And I looked at that. I had already attended several things around sex tech at that point. I saw sex tech school and I thought, well, that just seems like an obvious thing to do at this point. So I did join her cohort at that time. This was several years ago. And it was really helpful One, because I made the connections with the industry, but I also got to see firsthand actual entrepreneurs that were just starting to get into that space and seeing how they were thinking and they were coming from, like where they were coming from. That started my research almost. So yeah, so I'm actually a big supporter of Sex Tech School. I'm now, one of their mentors, and I will be one of their mentors for this cohort as well.
Well, that's exciting. Can you tell me? I'm just curious. A cohort begins and this lasts for how long?
I believe it is for, let me see, my cohort was for 8 weeks. I believe this one might be also for 8 weeks. I don't know why in my head I'm thinking 12 weeks, but maybe that was a conversation or wishful thinking at some point. But it is kind of done as a mini incubation or a mini accelerator, going through the entire business life cycle of a product or service, but we're adding, or I should say Brianna Cole adds the layer of the perspective of the sex tech industry and what it takes to be in there and how you have to manage things and move around the world because of payment processing being an issue, marketing being an issue, supply chains now being an issue, just along with the rest of the world. So it gives it that support. It also provides a community because it can be a very lonely space to be. Not only, many of us as entrepreneurs know that it can be lonely, but being an entrepreneur in sex tech kind of adds a level of loneliness if you're not in part of a community or getting support because you have so many challenges stacked up against you. And you have to constantly be explaining what sex tech is or what you're doing or defending yourself, not because of the product, but because of the space you're in. So having that
Yeah,
community is really helpful that she has built.
yeah.
And then she brings in speakers as well. So we get to showcase a lot of people, paths, projects, and stuff like that as well. So it's like a little mini accelerator, a mini space to even figure out if you want to be in sex tech.
Well, what I really like that you said, and I think about this related to my training, you really just pulled together the holistic nature of business. And for someone like me, whose focus was always in the university setting, how do I create a private practice? Where does that go? How do I provide consulting? There were no business directions. So you're giving a holistic plan. So here's your wheel with all its spokes and all the different things that could be utilized and helpful in creating a community. I'm curious, how did you decide to create this conference?
Um, it actually started for me several years ago. I wanted a conference. I wanted to attend. I had been searching a conference where I can feel comfortable exploring all parts of sexuality without being one of those adult conferences. There's nothing wrong with those adult conferences, but that was not the one I was looking for. I didn't want to go to an adult conference where it felt very overwhelming with all the like very hardcore sex products and the people all dressed up and like I didn't want to feel like I was at a sex party. Again, nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that, right? But I was looking for a conference where I can be knowledgeable, where I can kind of feel comfortable speaking, and where I could potentially bring my mom with me. I can bring my son with me. That's what I was looking for. And I, didn't have that. In the tech space that I moved about, I bring my son to the tech conferences, and he loves it. He loves being part of that. When I attend South by Southwest, that's a conference he's grown up going to with me in selective ways, but he can come. And I wanted that level of comfort. And I tried to look for that. And of course, that didn't exist. And then I decided actually last year that I wanted to build something. And I have a vision for a bigger in person conference. But I decided, you know what? I need to start somewhere. I need to see if there's an interest. I need to see if I can showcase the business of it. And I need to talk to a lot of investors. So I created a tiny one. This is not the actual first one. The first one was during South by Southwest this year in March. Not at South by, but in parallel with South by. Created a small event actually with Caliph Jones, which you know of the
Yes,
Monep.
yes.
Him and I,
The
yeah,
Monap.
him and I partnered up and said, let's do this. We put it together within a month. And we had a private event here in downtown Austin, Texas. And it was so popular. It was so good. We had so much positive feedback, just regular people coming to our event. And we both invited several people from the investment world, people that never touched sexual wellness, sexual health, didn't even want to come close to it. But we somehow managed to get them there, maybe because they knew us and they knew that we were good people. So they came and they were almost like the last ones to leave the event. Afterwards, they said, can we please talk to you? Can we meet with you? And I met with them the next day, and they were just in awe. They wanted to know more. They wanted to know where I was going with this. What was it? What was my thinking about it? And I said, I said, how did you feel in my event? How did you feel? And they said, wow, they said it was so beautiful. The people were so awesome to talk to. I never expected to walk into the sex industry event and feel so comfortable and just like I could be myself and ask questions without judgment. And also I can support them. And I told them, I said, that is sex tech. And that is the sex tech events that I will be creating, So that was the
That
first
is
thing.
perfect.
Yeah.
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 And I think you and I can really resonate with that. When I think about this is, I guess, 1 year and 3 months that I've run this space. And I think the idea of helping people understand that we can have conversations that provide a lot of different things using everyday language in the world to get the message out so people can begin that comfortable spot to say, okay, well, that wasn't so bad. I have a friend who told me the other day they see my space every time and they hover their finger over the join the space and they said, I just can't bring myself yet to be there. And, some of this is how we present it, how we move forward so that people feel good about it from whatever direction, that we're bringing it forward. So I'm really with you on that. And I think when people can meet us, hear what we sound like, hear how we present things, the passion, the direction that we have for it, then we become real people to them. And it changes the way that they can perceive what sex tech, what sexuality, what sexual wellness, what sex positivity, all of that has to do with. And that's what makes me really excited to have you here today to talk about the conference.
Yeah.
So, regarding the conference, I look at this list of speakers. And first, let me just clarify this conference is free to everyone.
Yes, it is.
So, and I think that is the coolest thing ever. And to look, I have the page up right now, and I'm scrolling through Meet Our Speakers. The list blows my mind to see who you have speaking. So I want to hear about how did you gather the people that you have gathered, and who was the most interesting one you
Oh
approached?
my gosh. Um, yeah, this is crazy. I'll tell you, I would tell you that, first of all, if you all don't know Brianni Cole, Future of Sex, definitely follow her. She's such a great human being. But I went to Brianni first and I said, this is what I want to do. This is where I'm going. And I need your support. I need you. I need you on my side here. And I didn't even have to say that with her. She was just like all in completely. And what she has done is been only like my mentor, somebody I can bounce ideas against, someone that's saying, and I said, I don't even know where to start. Like we know some of these big players in the game, they're hard to connect with. Plus, they're not going to want to be part of something that they're not really familiar with and they're busy. Um, but Brianni, she just said, no problem. I have a list. I'm going to give you the list and you just have to start talking to people. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was a little overwhelming and intimidating just because they don't really know who I am in English, right? So I had to be like, hablemos sex tech and all this stuff. So it was one of those moments of like, you know, I am really afraid of rejection, but I'm going to have to get rejected, to go forward with
Yeah.
this. And surprisingly, Dr. J, my first rejection was actually a friend. And
Oh,
it
wow.
double hurt me. Yeah, so I came back all wounded, back to Brioni, and I was like, I just had my first rejection, and it hurt so much, and it was so interesting to go through that process. But it was like, okay, good. Now you know what it feels like, and that's okay. Move on, go down the list. And so I did. I sent out a lot of messages, and once we put the website up of the conference, some of the speakers that had been kind of holding off started seeing, oh, this is real. This is really happening. I want in, and I'll do it. I'll do it. And the way I set it up was, not only did I want it to give a period where it was free for listeners, right? So the launch of it is for free. After the launch, it is going to be paid access. So, catch it the first weekend so that you can get it for free. After that, access will be a paid access. One of the reasons I did do that as well was I was asking my speakers for time. And a lot of my speakers, like, they get paid for their time, and I could not pay them. So I am sharing with them anything that comes in from any premium access after the weekend is launched for free. And they understood that really my goal was awareness. We need awareness around this. We need more investors to look at it. So, I went from that approach, and I just kind of, every step that I took with a new speaker, I would hold my breath. And then when they come back and say yes, like, I would jump up and celebrate so much in my living room, like in my living room for every single one of you, you know?
Well, listen, just so you know, when I got your email asking me to join you, I jumped up and down.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. So yeah, I didn't think I was going to be able to get some of these speakers, for example, Laura DiCarlo, right? Laura DiCarlo, she wasn't speaking a lot, and she doesn't give a lot of, time, and she's busy and everything. And I met her at South by Southwest at another event. Because she's been fundraising, and I quickly met her. And this is the thing. I got a picture with Laura, and I said, and I presented myself. I said, I have a Spanish podcast about sex tech, Hablemos Sex Tech. And she looked at me and she said, "You do?" I said, "Yes." And she had her team around her marketing team, and all her ops team were there. And I said, do you mind if I get a picture with you? And she's like, "Yes, but I have to be on your podcast." And I
Oh,
was like, wow. I said, "Well, Laura, do you speak Spanish?" And she said no. And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, then I cannot have you on my podcast. I don't compromise my podcast. It's for my Spanish speakers, and people need to speak Spanish." And she looked at me shocked, like, like, what? So, but I was like, but, she's like, "I can learn." And she has an Italian background. I said, "Okay, if you can learn," she said, "Talk to my person, talk to my person here." And so I did. I talked to them, and I've met with their teams and everything, and they're wonderful people as well. And then her supply chain distribution company decided they wanted to be part of the conference. So I had them be part of the conference, and they reached out to Laura and said, "You should be part of the conference too." So I, at that point, word got back to me that she was potentially interested. So I reached out to her. We had a meeting, and we talked about all sorts of things around sexuality and policy and everything that was happening, but she hadn't said yes to the conference. And so she was getting ready to go, and she's like, "Okay, well, it was great talking to you and all this." And I said, "Laura, so is part of my conference?" And she's like, "Oh, of course. Yeah, of course, I hung up, and I got up and screamed, and my son was here, and he's like, "What?" And I was like, "We've got to dance. We've got to dance." And I was like, "Laura DiCarlo just said yes." And
Well, let
Yeah.
me pause for a second because there are folks that may not know who Laura DiCarlo is, and she started her business in 2017. And I love how she talks about. I've heard her in one Twitter space, and she and I
Mm-hmm.
talked in a Twitter space, and I wanted her to come, and she said, "Talk to my team. I have sent 3 emails and have gotten no response from the team in terms of having her come into the space." But she is does a partnership with Oregon State
Mm-hmm.
University's Robotics and Engineering Lab, and she doesn't talk about sex toys. She talks about everything as sex tech. And I make devices, and these devices do this, and they're focused in this direction. And I remember reading when this happened that she had won the coveted Robotics Innovation Award from Consumer Technology, and then they
Mm-hmm.
rescinded it when they realized what her product was. So it jumped off a conversation in and of itself about what sex tech is, and how people view it and the way they're going to think about it. So she's been a true innovator in the
She
field. So I'm
has.
delighted.
Yeah. So and then she opened up the space because of that situation and herself, you guys will get to hear her in Reimagine Sexuality and where her background is. But herself, like she recognizes that there were so many others that struggled behind her. And it was one of those lucky situations or the situations that your product had to pay for it and you came back hard against the policies that these tech companies have, and innovation is innovation, and just because it's got the word sexual wellness on it, you now are going to call it an immoral product. you know because of that situation, that opened up the space for sex tech in a lot of conferences that normally we would not be able to go into. But she understands that there was many before her that were already kind of chipping at that rock too. She kind of helped with
Yeah.
that. So yeah, it's
And
great.
I feel that way when I talk about Rosie, the Rosie
Yes.
app. And when I talk about the reason that, they connected with me is that I have the two areas. They wanted to see someone who has the academic background and understands the science part, but can put that together for the creativity of erotica and what that can do in the science world. And now they are out there working with all sorts of OBGYNs to help them use this product for their patients. So it's the way we have to go about it to have these conversations and then help others stand on the shoulders, move them forward. Let's do this. So besides Laura and
Yeah.
besides Bryony,
Well,
who else has been
you
interesting
know,
that you talked with?
somebody that I had admired in the space really early on was Dr. Soné Brown out of South Africa. She
Hmm.
has a product called Rapex, which is a female condom with internal barbs in it. It's an anti-rape device. If you guys haven't heard about it, it's been around the market for a really long time. So Rapex was done, as something that she was doing because women in South Africa are just kind of getting raped off the street. And she was treating a lot of these, and she remembers one person or one girl saying to her, "I wish I had teeth down there," after she was in the hospital for being raped. And that kind of started her vision of like, what can I do to protect these women? So this condom that goes into the vagina with the barbs, that then if they were to get raped, the penis would get stuck in it. Then those barbs kind of come down onto the penis, causing it pain, but it doesn't dismember it. It will cause some pain. It gives time to the victim to get away, and then they cannot take it off without medical assistance. It kind of attaches itself more the more you pull on it or the more you try to take it off. So the rapist would have to go to a doctor or clinic or something to get it removed. This product actually came out in early 2000.
Yeah.
It's been around the block, and I started following the money for that product because I was like, I want to talk to these people. Like, what's happening with this product? What they had a GoFundMe, but I didn't understand what was happening. So I found who it was. I found their partner as well. His name is Vincent. He's on our page. And I talked to him and I was like, what's going on? What happened? So they explained it to me. And then I asked them, would you be interested in being part of this conference? And they discussed it and they said yes to me. They had never really heard about the sex tech market. They had never really heard about everything that's going on around that. They've been fighting their own little battle. Well, it's not little, it's quite a big battle to take on of trying to get this product out. But then this product is being called, like an immoral product. Like, how can you create something like that is going to hurt someone? And, that's a whole debate in itself, as well as like, well, how can a rapist rape someone knowing that they're going to hurt someone too? So, I thought I would really love to have them on here. And when they agreed, I was really excited. We couldn't believe it. Like, we couldn't believe that Sonay Bryant, who hadn't really been part of the sex tech circuit, was going to speak about it and talk more about it. And honestly, Dr. J, she is a very interesting and fascinating woman that's done so much research. I mean, before she created this product, she went into the jails to talk to rapists. She wanted to know what they were thinking, what it was like for them. She just has done so much, and she envisioned this product in 1960. Not exactly this product, but what the solution could potentially be. And she had to wait for the technology to come around. So
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting. I thought I was very surprised to have them on.
Well, it is fascinating. And the wild part where you think about somebody has this idea and they create the product. This was in my textbooks when I was teaching in college. So this was
Wow.
something that you would find there and hear about this product being created. So, and again, it's all within context. If we can have education that's going to help people understand in the sexuality world all of the holistic parts, the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we put the layer of what you're doing with the business for how to create whatever the product, innovation, ideas, and the people that can support that. The more that we can have conversations that get us to that place, then we're going to have more people getting the information that they need that's going to be very exciting with their quality of life. I have one more question that I want to ask you, and then I want to ask some of the questions that have been in
Yes.
the chat. So I hear that you had to really hold your breath to ask Cindy Gallup to be part of the process.
Yes. So if any of you follow me on LinkedIn, I wrote this story there because it was one of those moments I knew like early on when I started this project in May that there was no way. In my head, I was like, there's no way Cindy Gallup will do this. I know, and Cindy's busy and she's got bigger fish to fry, and you have to pay Cindy to talk, to speak as well. I mean, she's a speaker and that's part of her work. And and the thing is that I respect that a lot. I have a lot of respect for that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do a share profit kind of thing with my speakers, because it's like, I can't afford to pay for your time, but I value your time, and with Cindy, it was just one of those things that the more that I saw all the conference that I was putting together. And here's the thing, I've had so many people reach out to me that they want to be speakers. So I've discovered more products and more services because of this, because people have come and said, can we please be part of it? But I had to cap it. I had to have a cap on it. But for Cindy, it was one of those moments that I decided I cannot have a conference that's about the business of sexuality without having the person that turned the tide in sex tech, who actually coined the word sex tech, who has represented what it's like to be a woman in business so well, and then also a woman in business for sexuality. I mean, Cindy Gallup is that person, And I just thought, there's no way that Cindy Gallup cannot be part of this. So I I kind of did a lot of meditating and envisioned, okay, Cindy, be part of this, be part of this, you know, and
Manifest.
manifest, yeah. And then I sent her an email and I said, okay, I'm not going to beat around the bush. And I sent her an email and I said, Cindy, I hope this email finds you well. I'm going to get straight to the point here with what I need and what I'm asking, you know. I don't want to waste your time. So I told her, I said, I want you to be part of this topic. It was like 2 sentences that I wrapped it up for her. I want you to be part of this because of this, you know, and Cindy, I cannot pay you. However, I always talk about make love, not porn. I just got back from a tech conference in Mexico where I started talking about you. I support you however I can. I just think that you have to be in this conversation. And I just held my breath after that. After that, I actually said, you know what? I did it. I got over my fear, my intimidation. I got over being afraid of of rejection from one of the biggest players in the industry. I had Laura DiCarlo said yes to me. Why wouldn't Cindy say yes to me? You know?
Yeah.
And I just sent it to her. And 2 days later, I didn't hear from her. And it was kind of when you're dating someone and you keep refreshing your email or checking your text messages, you know, but I wouldn't hear from her. And then I said, okay, well, that's okay, because I feel good about not regretting not finding out what would have happened. And she came back and she said, yes, I will be part of this. Yes.
I love it. And you've already done her interview?
And I actually, guys, I do the interview today after you all.
Oh,
yeah.
We have her energy with us
exactly.
today.
So, yes, I do. So it really was when I started thinking about how did I end up getting Cindy, you know, I was like, I had to become Cindy. I had to I had to step into
You put on that red lipstick.
I put on my red lipstick. I got into my fancy shoes and I said, you know, my inner Cindy is calling you, Cindy.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple of questions here from the audience, and then we'll open up to see if we have any speakers.
Absolutely.
And again, I only see 5 people, so I'm going to be like, is this going to work so I can see what's going on here? So the first question is, in your years of tech, do you think accessibility has gotten better, and where do you think it's going to go with accessibility software?
Okay. Yes. So do I think it's gotten better? I think the awareness of the need has gotten better. The actual tech is still trying to catch up with our awareness and our need for it. Even before, you know, not even talking about the sex tech industry in itself, but just regular all day life, the companies, every company that I had to work for, consult with, the last couple of years, the amount of money that was being spent on trying to get the proper technology, the proper software to work with, you know, with the interaction of all the types of technologies we use to run a business was actually very, very challenging, especially for some of the bigger companies, right? So, because we have to think about accessibility for both our internal needs and then also for our customers and clients. And that is not the same technology and not the same integrations. So while, you know, I was serving in that industries in the regular tech world, I call it, we were very aware. We were still kind of battling with getting the right technologies and the function properly and all the ins and outs, because it is not very straightforward. Not just, you know, what are the laws around it, what are the requirements, but the actual needs, like the actual needs of how we can support all sorts of people that require assistance at work and also clients that require it with technology. Hope that answers it.
I think it's diverse. Mm-hmm. And because it's so diverse, you know, we have all these little pockets for how to cover which item it is that we're trying to cover.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's there.
Yeah. And in the sex tech space, if I can just mention for the sex tech space, you know, that is a discussion that has really come up more and more now. we try to make sure that we have that discussion in anything that people are building, products and services, that they're taking a look at holistically at the solutions as well from a product perspective. But if it's just kind of platforms, applications, stuff like that, that they can integrate with some of the softwares or come up with something that they can do, but it's still a challenge. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, yeah. So the next question is specific to the conference. So you said the weekend um, that it launches, that it's free to everyone. So this is the everyone question. If you
Yes.
live in the UK, can you attend the conference online? Who can get
Everyone,
to the conference?
everyone worldwide. If you have a computer, it is a virtual conference. So you can watch it from anywhere. The service that we are using you'll have accessible, you'll be able to access it from everywhere as long as you have an internet connection and you register for it. You'll be able to have it. So we are going to be running it from September 2nd through the 5th in 24 hours. So the entire thing will play for 24 hours around the clock so that we can make sure that people from around the world are able to see the full day, if that makes
Perfect. And
sense.
I just put the tweet up in the nest, so it's on both ends of the little dots. It says, "Get your free ticket to learn about sex tech from our awesome speakers. Follow us for more." And so that's the link that you can use to get your free ticket in that direction. So we're at quarter till. We have 15 more minutes. So if there's anyone who would like to come and ask Rocio any questions, this is the time that you can do that, and we'll see if we can make that work. As you're getting closer to time, Rocio, what are the last things that you're trying to put the icing on the cake? What are you working with?
We are right now at the point where we're starting to load a lot of our recordings and doing and testing to make sure that everybody can access it, to make sure that it is um, as engaging as possible as well. Going through all our recordings and making sure that we captured everyone in the space that they wanted to be as well. And honestly, I am replying to a lot of people that want to be speakers as well, so having a lot of
Yeah.
conversations there. The team is working on the marketing piece as well. We've got to be real careful with the way that we're doing our marketing. So it helps if you all retweet, would you share, you let people know, because we are having to be careful with making sure that none of our stuff gets shut down.
Gotcha. And boy, yes, I understand that one. So we have a question, a comment and a question from Ramon. It seems like women's visibility and influence in sex tech has risen exponentially and is so welcomed. Has the investment money and sources grown as well?
Yes. One of the reasons why we're doing this conference is for more awareness in the investment community around this industry. Because while we have seen more interest and more companies coming, it hasn't grown to the level that we see other industries grow. And most of the investment company is from other women, female investors. We don't have big VCs really coming and knocking on our doors or even wanting to touch it because they have a lot of moral clauses.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we're dealing with all of that for sure. So, again, people could be requesting the mic, and since I only see five people in the space, I don't know what the technology here is. So I'm glad your people are using the chat feature at the bottom right-hand corner, and I'm trying to work through that. But here's a question that I have for you, Rocio. Of all the things that you've done, what question did you expect me to ask you that I haven't, but you are just dying to tell me about?
Oh my gosh. Let's see. Um, how this has been received in Latin America, actually, since that's actually where I focus. Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Let's
tell me,
let's talk
tell
about
me.
that because that's so interesting, right? Because we think, and I've discovered this from all the speakers. So we think that it's our cultures and our region that have a lot of taboo, and we're just not talking about it. And that is actually global. It's actually worldwide. And at first, when I went into Latin America, I thought, oh, it's only Latin America, heavy Catholic, religion, conservatives, macho, all these things, and I was surprised to find that we're not alone. But it is there, it is very heavy. And the thing is that there is over 460 million Spanish speakers, and we don't have any innovations or anything in Spanish except for, my podcast right now. But I've noticed how the younger generation just really is so hungry for this. And I was really surprised when one of the biggest tech conferences in Mexico said that I can go and speak there about sex tech. And to me, that was a huge step forward. They were allowing me, a woman, to come and talk about sex tech in this very conservative space. So most of the time in the stage that I was supposed to be at, I hardly ever saw anyone there. There wasn't a lot of interest. However, when I came up to speak, I had a full house and standing. And afterwards, I was bombarded by people asking questions of how they can learn more, how can they get better sexual education. And I looked around and I thought, wow, look at this. It's not that we're rigid, conservative, or anything. It's that we're hiding and we're not allowing these conversations to happen. So I was very surprised, for Latin America, where I thought, oh, for sure, this is going to be so hard to be in the space. But it was so comforting to see that all these people were so hungry for this information that I'm on track for bringing the awareness and hopefully more innovations in Spanish as well. You know.
I think you have hit the nail on the head in terms of, we are creating elbow space. I think about, yes, watch me do my elbows and make space around me. And that's what we're doing for sexuality. Here's the space that we can create for that. And here's the energy of what it's like. And here's what it sounds like. And I want to give you an example. This is within 24 hours of brand new news and interesting way to see how this is going to go. But there is a new community that has been created on Twitter. And in that process, they asked for featured teachers. And I put myself forward as a featured teacher because I always like to throw myself out there and let's see how they're going to respond to me, especially if they know me and they like me and they go, oh, should we have this topic? Which you know all about, Rosie. Shall we have this topic? I don't know. So I go to the meeting and all the featured people are on the screen and we have to introduce ourselves and what it is that we could be teaching. And, everybody's staring at me and I'm doing my usual thing. And then the person who's pulling all this together goes, and I'm so glad you said that because I'm talking directly with Twitter, who has given me the outline of what can and can't be on there. And you and I will be having a conversation to make sure that your material is going to stay front and center with how they want it presented. I was thinking this is going to be so interesting to hear what that conversation is. We haven't had the follow up for that, but it's like, yeah, hasn't that been my life? You can do this and this, but you can't say that and that and that. And we want you to put it together in this particular package, looking this particular way. And, sometimes the reality is, how do we get our foot in the door
Yes.
so that people can hear who we are? And when they find out the who we are part, then it might be easier to have the sexuality conversation.
Absolutely. Isn't that so interesting? That, we have to show that we're just normal, regular people with well-intended, solutions or well-intended messages. And then we have to use the right words. So I completely understand. I was when I was dealing with the conference people in Mexico, you know, they had to push me all the way up. They had to get the highest level person in charge to come and meet me. So
Yeah.
because they were trying to convince them, they wanted me there, you know, and so the people that recruit, they had to convince their own people, but then they were like, no, we need you to meet them so that they can see it's just, you know, a normal, like professional, educated female that is talking about sexual health. Right. So I had to use the word health in there. Like you said, anything to get us in the door.
Yeah, health and wellness
Yes.
and quality of life and all of the areas of that life has to offer. I mean, you get good at couching it in the directions, you know, to bring it forward, you know. So open-minded people can maybe be a little more open-minded, and we can add these words into the vocabulary, and you know, within that process it'll, you know, make it be different. But yes, and I am just tickled that you said that you would come in today so we could talk about this. And so people just need to follow your link and to reserve their spot to hear the free conference that's available for all of these folks. I can't wait to hear some of these presentations myself. And a funny thing, I don't even remember what you and I talked about. I know we talked about stuff.
Well, I'm always, you know, I love people's journeys. I love to know, and that's one thing that everybody will hear from all our speakers, which was, how did you get here, right? So you and I talked a lot about the evolution of your career, like
Yeah.
how you went from condom packer to, you know, this like the sexuality space on Twitter, right?
And it wasn't a straight line,
It
was
was
it?
not a straight line, no, you know. So I think I think it's a very interesting, and it's important to learn, you know, of like how normal it is to be in this space, right? None of us grow up thinking, oh, this is what I'm going to do. You know, like
Yeah.
that's just not the case.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what we spoke about, you know, that and how, you know, Twitter spaces and everything. And I think I just love people. I love learning about their journeys, who they are, what they're doing. And this conference to me is no difference, you know, while we are talking about their innovation services, the business challenges, you know, what the business opportunities are. With all my speakers, I want to know why and how they got there.
Yeah. Are you still there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
Okay.
you hear me? Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I'm getting nervous on my technology on this end. It's like, okay, dadgummit.
So it
Well,
looks
I
like
wanted to,
there's a question in there, and I just, if you don't mind, I do want to address the question that came in. Um, about they just got a ticket, so thank you for getting a ticket and registered. As far as the screen readers to be able to easily watch it on iPhone, those are some of the things that we are testing right now. And the person that just sent that message, if you don't mind DMing us directly so that I can follow up with you as we proceed with the testing as well on our end.
that is perfect. Thank you, Alex. I see that that came from you. I appreciate your efforts and always bringing us forward for good information here. Well, Rocio, I want to thank you for joining us today. Up in the nest over your head, I know that Misha has put in a link to sign up for the Sexuality Space newsletter. And in that newsletter will be my Spaces dashboard link, which all of the tweets and the resources and everything that we talked about that Misha's put up in there will be all a repository, all in one place that you can get that. The other thing that I'm going to let you know, so everyone here is hearing this for the first time, back in December, Twitter gave me a community, which I did nothing with. I gave it a placeholder. I put Misha and myself in it. And after some things that I'm learning from Twitter and directions that they're going to be going, including having private spaces in the private communities, that I decided to move forward with the sexuality space community. And if you would like to be included in that, please DM me directly so I can send you a link for that. Rocio, you have just been wonderful. I am just delighted that you were here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation. I really do. I thought it was kind of an honor for myself to come in and be able to be in the sexuality space with you on talking about Reimagine Sexuality and giving me the opportunity to explain why this is important. So thank you.
You are welcome. And it is about community, and it's about continuing to grow the community and making these connections like we're doing, and then uplift each other in the work that we have. So I am delighted that you're here. Please, everyone, follow Rocio here, and subscribe to the newsletter. And if you want to join the high communities, just DM me. And I had an unexpected birthday present visit from my Austin living son, who is here with me right now. So I've been busy playing, and I can't tell you what our space is going to be next week because of that. So just stay tuned on the timeline and you will see what that's going to be. But again, thank you everyone for joining in and listening. Thank you to my lovely silent co-host Misha for doing all this great back end work, and for Rosia being a speaker today. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for taking time out to be with us live today. And I'll see you next week in the sexuality space.
Thank you, Dr. J.